It's Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are at the California State Association of Counties Convention in Palm Springs, California. We are joined by Zach Friend. He is a supervisor in Santa Cruz County. I want to speak about the 2016 presidential election. California pretty much voted as anticipated. Not a lot of swing. Mrs. Clinton did quite well in California, but the rest of the nation turned a bit, and our new president-elect is Donald Trump. A bit unexpected, but he is a president-elect. What do you make of this election of Mr. Trump?
I think that one of the things that hasn't really been discussed is what impacts there will be at the local level as a result of this election. A lot of the discussion is focused on the repeal of Obamacare, block granting elements from Health and Human Services, a change in the justice realignment. The state of California, and Santa Cruz County in particular, spent a lot of time and a lot of money making sure we bring people into the fold on the health insurance side, working on justice realignment.
Okay, let's talk about health care first. Because while Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, surely hit some speed bumps along the way, we do know that 20 million people have insurance that didn't before, and to the extent speed bumps were hit, not so many in California. Covered California has been pretty successful. And so where does a county like Santa Cruz go from here in the wake of the relative success of the Affordable Care Act in our state?
Well, we added over 30,000 people to the rolls in Santa Cruz County alone, people that were in the shadows previous to this, that were just using episodic emergency room care. So we need these people to actually have health insurance. I mean, they have a need for it. The question is, how do we pay for it moving forward if there's not going to be any federal reimbursement component for it? Will the state pick up elements of it? I don't know.
How will the state afford? I mean,
think about it.
Under the Affordable Care Act, so many people are getting insurance through Covered California because of the subsidies.
I understand.
Or because of the Medicaid expansion, which California accepted. If those go away, I don't know where California finds itself.
But I think what you're going to see is more counties, such as ours, having discussions like we're starting to have right now about what do we do in our own county? Meaning, do we create our own program? Do we fund our own situation?
But from where does the money derive for you to create that program?
So there are different ways that it could be derived. In our situation, we have an alliance of local hospitals and local healthcare providers that recognize that it's actually less expensive to have people receive preventive care, and so they pay funds into a local situation. You could even go to the voters and actually ask, do you want to fund through a tax or an assessment a health insurance exchange type program for low-income individuals? I really think that a lot of counties throughout our state are going to start having these exact questions.
It's interesting you say that, because as you know, in November, 14 counties had self-help transportation taxes on their ballot. Only 6 passed, but your county was one of them.
It was one of them.
And so that needed a 2/3 vote. So it looks like Santa Cruz County may be one that would look favorably on something like that.
And by less than a percentage point, we did pass our transportation. It was that close.
It was 67.2 or something.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But I tell you that we're recognizing that as we'd had this conversation previously, that the state and federal government isn't necessarily going to be there to help us on a lot of issues, and that's becoming, I think, even more evident now with the transition of this administration, where the administration is saying, we're not going to actually be there. It'll be either a block grant situation. So for transportation, for healthcare, for homeless issues, you are going to see us going to voters more and more and saying, what level of service do you want us to provide?
But here's the challenge. Look, it's okay to go to voters more and more, but I think voters would be more amenable to pass these local taxes if they saw their other taxes coming down because the state's not providing those services, the feds aren't providing those services. I don't see that happening. I mean, at some point, the voters are going to say enough.
Yes, and they have. And there were things that didn't pass over the last couple of elections within Santa Cruz County for that exact component. There were things that didn't pass at the state level for that exact situation. But we did have a conversation with the voters in Santa Cruz County specific about the transportation needs. Look, it's pretty self-evident. You drive on the roads in Santa Cruz County. But with that said, it still barely passed. The 2/3 supermajority is a very difficult threshold to reach.
Well, let me ask you this. Should we look at that 2/3? Because if local government is going to have to bear more of the burden, we already have the 55% threshold for school bonds.
Right.
And so if we really are seeing a revolution in who provides services, do we need a revolution on how taxes and fees are passed?
I think 2/3 is an unreasonable number in order for a community to make a determination of how it wants to tax itself. I think that it's reasonable to go to a 55% level on a lot of numbers. I mean, we've had taxes not pass in Santa Cruz County because they've got 60, 61,
Right,
63,
it is
64.
interesting. Right.
And it's just, it seems like a very difficult threshold. And when Prop 13 was created, remember Prop 13 created a 2/3 requirement, but didn't get 2/3.
It got, what, 51.9 or
didn't
something?
even get 2/3 on
Right.
its own. So it was smart on a political side, but it hasn't necessarily on the taxation element been good policy through and through.
So let's talk about criminal justice, because on the criminal justice side, we have counties bearing more responsibility for incarceration, but that really is more of a state mandate as opposed to a federal mandate. So I don't know that the incoming Trump administration would impact criminal justice issues, or would it?
They would, because it has to do with the philosophy in the Department of Justice of how they handle criminal justice reform.
Explain.
The Obama administration and even a large part of Congress has been saying some of our federal policies on incarceration aren't working, and we're going to create a lot more funding available for areas and states and counties that actually do criminal justice reform efforts. The state, through realignment, has been a large, benefactor of this. If you say instead that all the money is going to go to prison building, or all the money is going to go toward incarceration type philosophies, right? Then we're going to lose a lot of the innovation that we've had, a lot of the funding we've had, et cetera. Now, in our county, we're going to continue doing what we do because the sheriff has said that this is something that he truly believes in. But again, they rely on state and federal. I know.
Here's the challenge. I mean, let me throw this at you. As you know, in the 1960s, the nation went through a desegregation effort. And how did that desegregation effort get pushed? The federal government said, if you don't desegregate, we're going to withdraw funding.
Right.
Okay, well, you could flip the script, and you could have the Trump administration saying, if you don't eliminate sanctuary city status, if you don't incarcerate people for 5 years or more for XYZ crime, you're not going to get federal funding.
That's real. That is a real concern that local cities and counties within the state are having to deal with right now. Let me tell you something though. If the values of a community are such that they want you to continue to do what you're doing, they'll say so with their votes and they'll say so with their funding.
Let's talk about immigration, if we may, because look, there's no question there's a lot of fear surrounding the immigration rhetoric of the incoming president. I have a friend who's a principal at an inner city school, and the first week after the election, they were not able to educate because there were so many students of Latino descent that were either undocumented themselves or had family that was undocumented, and there's a lot of fear about deportation. Santa Cruz, you got plenty of Latinos in Santa Cruz, Asian Americans or Asians that may not be American.
Right.
What are you hearing on the streets?
Well, first off, there is a lot of fear and it's just wrong. I mean, the fact that this kind of rhetoric's going on at all is just, in my opinion, not America at all. I represent an area that has a community college, a significant community college, Cabrillo College.
Of course.
Right after this happened, it happened after the election. The week after happened to be enrollment, the beginning of enrollment week. Counselors were telling me that they were getting less and less people coming in to enroll out of fear. They're dreamers.
Well,
These are
think about
dreamer kids.
this. The dreamers signed up to be dreamers and gave them deferred status, and now the federal government has their name, address, social security number.
I understand that.
So the incoming administration could clearly just go to that database if they want to deport dreamers, no?
Well, that's how it appears, and I just hope that covenant. I mean, I feel like we made a commitment to these kids. I feel like we made a commitment to this country and to our community, especially, that kind of stuff wouldn't happen. Community after community has been saying that we'll do everything we can to protect these students. The UC system, the Cal State system, and the community college
Then
system
the Trump
said the same
administration could withhold federal funding, just like the Johnson administration did during desegregation.
These are the challenges.
His name is Zach Friend. He is a supervisor in Santa Cruz County. My name is Brad Pomerance. We're at CSAC in Palm Springs, California. This is Charter Local Edition.